Have you ever taken note of how a majority of older individuals develop less appealing habits without even being conscious of it? This transformation occurs gradually, and most fail to recognize it until their relationships have already suffered. In this presentation, we are bringing to light 9 unattractive behaviors that most people unknowingly engage in more frequently as they get on in years. This isn't intended to evoke shame. Rather, it's an invitation to pause, engage in self-reflection, and make better choices. These patterns of behavior aren't invariably conspicuous or overt. They often become embedded in daily routine, camouflaged as, "That's just my personality." However, if they remain unaddressed, they can wear away at relationships, diminish your personal impact, and, quite ironically, leave you feeling more disconnected during a phase of life that ought to be abundant with meaningful connections. I encourage you to stay with us until the conclusion, because the elements on this list might not only question your preconceived notions, but also assist you in cultivating a more robust, esteemed presence in the forthcoming years. You will learn how subtle modifications in behavior can bring about significant alterations in the way others perceive you, and more crucially, in how you perceive yourself. Let us commence. Number 1. An increasing inclination to fixate on the negative. Among the most prevalent behaviors that subtly emerge with advancing age is a heightened concentration on negativity. It can begin almost imperceptibly, perhaps with a slightly increased frequency of complaints regarding the weather, the price of goods, or how circumstances were superior in the past. Yet, over time, it can define the overall atmosphere you project. And the unfortunate aspect is that many individuals do not even notice this shift occurring. When you dedicate more time to highlighting what is amiss rather than what is commendable, others start to link you with a sense of heaviness, with a somber mood. Not because you are inherently unkind, but because the emotional environment surrounding you becomes more difficult to endure. Furthermore, the irony lies in the fact that numerous older adults possess a wealth of wisdom and insight to impart, but it becomes obscured by a tone that feels depleting instead of encouraging. It is crucial to grasp that this habit does not invariably originate from a place of bitterness. In reality, it frequently arises from disappointment, unresolved grief, or a feeling of being outpaced by change. You might be grieving the decline of energy, the loss of friendships, or diminished mental clarity, and this sorrow can manifest indirectly through complaints, sarcasm, or criticism. But while the emotions themselves are legitimate, their expression, particularly when it evolves into a default mode, can be profoundly alienating. For instance, when you are at a family dinner and the initial comment you make concerns how the cuisine isn't as it once was or the excessive volume of the music, it instantaneously alters the emotional ambiance. People do not feel uplifted or reassured. They feel disheartened. And if this becomes a recurring pattern, they might begin to steer clear of such interactions altogether, merely to safeguard their own emotional equilibrium. What renders this behavior truly unattractive is not its underlying motive, but its consequence. It conveys the message, however subtly, that life offers more grounds for complaint than for gratitude. And the more frequently this message is reiterated, the more it impacts your relationships, your disposition, and even your physical health, because the brain, especially in later years, grows more attuned to recurring emotional states. That negativity, even when expressed casually, establishes a mental feedback loop that influences everything else. And here is the unpalatable truth. The more you concentrate on what is flawed, the less opportunity there is for others to contribute positively, and the less secure, welcome, or eager they feel to be in your company. This is not about feigning positivity or pretending that everything is flawless. It is about remembering that gratitude, warmth, and a light-hearted demeanor do not diminish with age. They persist as a choice, and they are more significant than ever. Number 2, interrupting or monopolizing conversations without awareness. As we advance in age, many of us accumulate decades of narratives, lessons, and viewpoints. And that is a wonderful asset until it starts to manifest in ways that unintentionally mute others. One of the behaviors that tends to become more pronounced with age is the practice of cutting in or talking over individuals, not from a lack of respect, but from an enthusiasm to share or from the conviction that your perspective is more valuable than their current statement. The issue is, when this conduct becomes frequent, it doesn't register as wisdom, it registers as disregard. People start to feel as though their contributions are insignificant, or that they are being corrected rather than truly listened to. And that dynamic can foster emotional separation, particularly with younger individuals who are already striving to establish their own voices. It frequently originates from a place of passion. You overhear someone broach a subject you have personal experience with or extensive knowledge of, and before you know it, you are interjecting with, "Oh, I understand precisely what you mean," and then proceeding with your own account. You might believe you are establishing a connection, but at that moment, the other person feels overlooked. Or consider a scenario where your adult children are discussing their parenting methods, and before they complete a sentence, you interject with advice or judgment. Even if your input is valid, the manner of its delivery, through interruption rather than invitation, can make them feel as if they are being chided rather than supported. It's not about stifling your voice or tiptoeing around issues. It's about cultivating the ability to pause, to genuinely listen, and to wait until someone has concluded before you offer a response. That straightforward adjustment from merely speaking to truly connecting can profoundly alter how others receive you. There is a subtle strength in allowing others to speak first. It communicates respect. It demonstrates a maturity that doesn't feel the need to assert itself. And ironically, it often results in others soliciting your opinions rather than preparing to resist them. And bear in mind, conversations are not contests. They are opportunities to see and understand one another. When you afford someone the complete space to articulate their thoughts, you offer them a gift far more valuable than any counsel you could provide. If you are still engaged with this video and find these observations beneficial, please enter number 2 in the comments below to let me know you are present. And if you have not yet subscribed, I encourage you to do so and activate the notification bell to ensure you don't miss any future videos. Your engagement helps us to persist in producing valuable content to inform and motivate you. Now let us continue. Number 3, delivering harsh truths without regard for timing or tone. A notion exists that as we age, we acquire the prerogative to say whatever we wish, however we wish. And while there is some validity to the idea that age brings a certain freedom, there is also a penalty when that freedom morphs into inconsideration. One of the behaviors that tends to become more prevalent over time is the habit of stating things with excessive bluntness, even when such statements are unnecessary or could be phrased with greater sensitivity. You might perceive yourself as merely being honest or assisting someone in recognizing a truth. However, to the individual on the receiving end, it can come across as sharp, dismissive, or even damaging, particularly when concerning delicate subjects such as physical appearance, career decisions, relationships, or lifestyle choices. And over time, this sort of unmoderated bluntness can alienate people, even those who hold affection for you. It frequently manifests in statements like, "You've put on weight," "That hairstyle is unflattering on you," or "That concept will inevitably fail." You may not intend to be malicious, but when truth is conveyed without gentleness, it forfeits its worth. It transforms into criticism rather than guidance. At some point, many individuals start to believe that younger generations are overly sensitive and that the issue rests with them, not with the manner in which things are communicated. But reflect on this. If people consistently react negatively to your words, perhaps the message itself isn't flawed, but the delivery method is. Tone is important, timing is important, and above all, intent must be enveloped in compassion if it is to be well received. Take a moment to think about the individuals you hold in the highest esteem in your life. It is likely that it wasn't solely what they said that resonated with you, it was how they said it. Their words carried significance, not because they were severe, but because they were articulated with care. There is power in moderation. There is wisdom in recognizing when to remain silent, and even greater wisdom in selecting how to speak when the situation demands it. It is not about being voiceless, it is about being strategic, considerate, and kind. Because ultimately, the people around you will not recall every opinion you expressed, but they will remember how they felt when you spoke. Did they feel encouraged, or did they feel judged? That feeling endures far longer than any single truth ever will. Number 4, becoming progressively judgmental regarding others' lifestyles. As the years pass, it can become surprisingly simple to adopt the habit of passing judgment on others, particularly when their choices bear no resemblance to the ones we might have made. Whether it pertains to someone's attire, their manner of speaking, their choice of spouse, or their beliefs, that inner voice of criticism tends to grow louder with age, frequently without our even noticing. This behavior typically does not stem from malicious intent. Often it is founded on a wish to safeguard values we have abided by for many years. Values that assisted us in navigating difficult periods, raising families, and constructing lives of which we are proud. However, the world undergoes changes, and when we regard every novel idea or unfamiliar behavior as erroneous, rather than simply different, we run the risk of becoming emotionally inflexible and more challenging to connect with. You might find yourself thinking or uttering phrases such as, "In my era, we would never have behaved that way," or "they no longer understand the meaning of respect." And while these assertions may feel like truth to you, they often convey to others that you are reluctant to adapt, to listen, or to permit them to develop in their own manner. For instance, a 65-year-old man named Walter remarked to his daughter, who had recently adopted a vegetarian diet, "That's absurd. You require meat for good health." He intended no harm, but she felt invalidated, unheard, and exasperated. What could have been a supportive dialogue devolved into estrangement, all because his perspective lacked the flexibility to accommodate hers. The reality is, people are not issues to be resolved. They are human beings to be understood. And each time we approach with judgment instead of curiosity, we forfeit the opportunity to truly perceive the individual before us. You are not obligated to concur with everything, but a gentle sense of inquiry, asking, "Why do they perceive it this way?" instead of hastily condemning, can revolutionize your relationships. It creates room for mutual respect and often unexpected connections. Judgment constricts your world, curiosity broadens it. And at this juncture in life, the last thing we require is a more limited social circle, fewer dialogues, or additional barriers between ourselves and the people we care about. If you are still viewing this video and find these points insightful, please comment with number 4 below, so I know you're with me. And if you're not yet a subscriber, I suggest you subscribe and enable notifications so you won't miss any of our videos. Your support is vital for us to continue producing quality content that informs and inspires. Let's proceed. Number 5, declining assistance even when it is needed. One of the most persistent behaviors that can emerge with age, almost unannounced, is the refusal to accept help. It begins subtly. You might dismiss someone's offer to assist with a heavy item, repair something in your home, or provide transportation. And it appears commendable, even self-reliant. But over time, this reluctance can lead to isolation. You see, we are often raised with the understanding that strength equates to managing everything independently, that requiring assistance somehow diminishes us, makes us less competent, or worse, less esteemed. However, here is the reality. As we grow older, true strength begins to manifest very differently. It is not measured by how much we can lift or how long we can drive. It is found in our capacity to adapt, to receive love in action, and to allow others into our lives. When you persistently refuse help, what you are actually doing, though perhaps unintentionally, is spurning connection. You are essentially stating, "I do not wish to need you," while the individuals in your life are expressing, "I wish to be needed." Whether it is your children, your neighbors, or your friends, those offering assistance are not motivated by pity. They are motivated by care. I once knew an 82-year-old gentleman named Harold who lived by himself after his wife had passed away. His son would frequently call and offer to visit, manage errands, or even prepare meals. But Harold consistently replied, "No need, I'm perfectly fine." Not because he was, but because he wished to avoid inconveniencing anyone. What he failed to grasp was that his son started to feel powerless and unvalued, and that emotional gap widened silently between them. Permitting others to help you does not render you a burden. It affirms your humanity. It offers others the satisfaction of giving. It strengthens trust and serves as a reminder to them and to you that you continue to be important, not merely for your actions, but for your being. The irony is that many older individuals derive great pleasure from assisting others. They become animated when they can impart wisdom, provide advice, or offer a helping hand. But they overlook the fact that the younger generation shares this sentiment. When you accept assistance, you are not merely taking, you are also giving. You are affording others the opportunity to express their affection for you in a concrete manner. So, the next occasion someone says, "Allow me to assist you with that," do not perceive it as a sign of weakness. View it as an instance of connection, a quiet gesture of love. Because aging gracefully does not entail managing everything in solitude. It involves recognizing when to rely on others and allowing that reliance to draw people nearer, not push them away. Number 6, speaking more than listening in conversations. A subtle transformation tends to occur with advancing age, particularly when one has experienced a full and varied life. You possess an accumulation of stories, lessons, and wisdom gathered over many years. Consequently, when discussions arise, it becomes easy to shift into a narrative mode, sometimes without even being aware of it. You cease to listen and commence broadcasting. Initially, it may feel like a form of connection. You are generously sharing your experiences. However, over time, if you consistently dominate the conversation, those around you may begin to feel overlooked, especially younger individuals who might already be hesitant to express themselves. They start to sense that your narratives leave scant room for their own. And this isn't confined to age disparities. Even friends, siblings, or long-term partners can perceive the imbalance when one individual monopolizes a dialogue. Listening encompasses more than simply remaining silent while another person speaks. It is a deliberate decision to create space for someone else's world, even when your own is replete with experiences. When you interrupt, complete someone's sentence, or steer the conversation back to your own experiences, it conveys a subtle message. What I have to contribute is more important. Again, this often stems from habit rather than arrogance. You have witnessed more. You have endured more. But if this becomes the standard mode of interaction, you forfeit the gift of fresh perspectives. Consider, for example, a woman named Janice, age 74, who was conversing with her granddaughter about a recent romantic breakup. Each time the young woman attempted to share her feelings, Janice responded with her own anecdotes, how dating was in her youth, what men were like in those days, and how she dealt with heartbreak. Her intentions were rooted in love, but her approach was misdirected. What the granddaughter truly required was presence, not a discourse. Listening is among the most potent expressions of respect. It communicates to someone, "You are significant enough for me to set aside my own thoughts right now." It fosters a sense of safety. And it is a humbling practice because it reminds you that regardless of the extent of your life experiences, there is always more to learn about others and about yourself. You do not need to cease sharing your stories. They are valuable, they are relatable, they are necessary. But endeavor to ask more questions. Pause for a longer duration before you speak. Observe whether the other person is still engaged with you or is quietly disengaging. Because when you genuinely listen, something remarkable occurs. People become more open, they relax, they place their trust in you. And within that space, authentic connection is forged, not merely between two voices, but between two hearts. If you're still following this video and finding these insights helpful, please type number 6 in the comments below to show you're here. And if you haven't subscribed already, I'd advise you to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any videos. Your support enables us to keep producing quality content to inform and inspire you. Let's continue. Number 7, forming negative generalizations about younger generations. One of the more accessible pitfalls to succumb to with age is the creation of broad, often critical, opinions about young people nowadays. It commences with a handful of observations. Perhaps someone fails to hold a door open, or they are engrossed in their phone during a meal. Before long, you have categorized an entire generation with a single judgment: lazy, disrespectful, selfish. But here's the issue. These generalizations are not merely unjust, they silently deprive you of deeper relationships and novel perspectives that could genuinely enhance your life. Let's be honest, every generation tends to believe that the succeeding one is lacking in some respect, and this is not a recent phenomenon. People in the 1950s perceived teenagers as rebellious and untamed. In the 1980s, older individuals asserted, "Kids today don't understand hard work." Now, we observe today's young adults and express similar sentiments. However, each generation matures in a distinct world, facing different pressures, utilizing different tools, and holding different values. They may not compose thank you letters as you once did, but they might contribute to online fundraisers for strangers. They may not remain in the same occupation for 40 years, but they might be juggling 3 careers while simultaneously caring for their parents and raising children. If the primary message they receive from you is, "Back in my day," or "Your generation just doesn't understand," they will disengage, not because they are indifferent, but because they feel unseen, judged, before they have even had an opportunity to reveal their true selves to you. I recall a man named George, 79, who once expressed to me that his grandson was soft because he discussed attending therapy. George stated, "In my era, we simply coped with things." But over time, George began to recognize that his grandson's vulnerability was, in fact, a form of strength, that openly addressing mental health was not a sign of weakness, but rather courage, combined with honesty. This change in perspective not only helped George view his grandson in a new light, but also paved the way for genuine conversations, shared laughter, mutual enjoyment of music, and even a weekend excursion they otherwise never would have undertaken. The truth is, when you presume the worst about an entire group, you cease to perceive individuals as unique people. And when you do that, you foreclose the possibility of learning, growing, and forging bonds across age groups, across differing values, across diverse worlds. Attempt to ask more questions rather than making definitive statements. Encourage dialogue instead of offering criticism. When you approach with curiosity, you not only avoid sounding embittered, but also construct bridges where walls might have otherwise stood. The younger generation does not require your endorsement, but they do need your wisdom, and they are far more inclined to seek it if they feel respected rather than disparaged. And here is the truly interesting aspect. The more you engage with younger individuals, the more vibrant you feel. Their energy, ideas, and aspirations can reawaken parts of you that felt dormant for a long time, but only if you permit them entry, only if you cease labeling and begin listening. Number 8, interrupting or dismissing others during conversations. As we mature, we often accumulate a vast collection of stories, lessons, and viewpoints developed over many years. And while this experience is certainly something to be valued, it can also foster a surprisingly off-putting habit, cutting individuals off mid-sentence or entirely disregarding what they are trying to convey. This is seldom done with malicious intent. Frequently, it arises from enthusiasm, a desire to be helpful, or the belief that you have already encountered and dealt with similar situations. However, when you interrupt someone, particularly someone younger, it transmits a subtle message. What I have to contribute is more significant than what you are currently saying. Over time, this seemingly minor behavior erodes trust, intimacy, and mutual respect. People begin to withdraw. They communicate less in your presence, not because they lack the desire to share, but because they feel unheard. And this fosters distance, even with loved ones who care for you deeply. I knew a woman named Helen, aged 72, who had 3 adult daughters. Each time they visited, Helen would complete their sentences or interject with advice before they had even finished posing a question. Eventually, the visits grew shorter, and phone calls became less frequent. One day, her eldest daughter gently told her, "Mom, we love you. But sometimes it feels as though there's no room for our voices." This revelation deeply saddened Helen, but it also opened her eyes. She started to observe how often she interjected too hastily. So she resolved to try a different approach. She paused, she listened intently, she waited, and gradually their conversations were revitalized. Listening involves more than just perceiving words. It means offering your presence. It means providing someone with the space to express themselves without the apprehension of being cut off, corrected, or talked over. And here is the beautiful aspect. When you genuinely listen, you often discern things you would have otherwise missed. A quiet sorrow someone is bearing, a small happiness they had not previously shared, a dream they are hesitant to articulate. By listening fully, you communicate to that person, "You are important. Your thoughts are important. I wish to understand who you are at this moment, not just who you once were or who I believe you ought to be." Especially after the age of 70, people do not always anticipate that we will listen. But when we do, when we offer our attention instead of our opinion, it surprises them and draws them closer. That kind of focused attention is uncommon these days, in a world characterized by rapid pace and loud discourse. Granting someone the gift of being thoroughly heard is one of the most powerfully healing actions we can offer. It costs nothing, yet it fosters connection, trust, and a closeness that material wealth cannot procure. Number 9, presuming you already possess all knowledge. There is a sentiment that quietly develops with age, an often unvoiced feeling that we have encountered everything, heard everything, and acquired all necessary learning. And while experience is undoubtedly precious, this conviction can gradually morph into one of the most unappealing behaviors we exhibit without realizing it. Behaving as though we already hold all the answers. It manifests in subtle ways, dismissing new concepts because they do not align with what we learned many years ago, expressing disdain for different lifestyles or modern technological advancements, or declining to ask questions or seek assistance because it might portray us as uncertain. But here is the unvarnished truth. The instant we cease to be curious is the instant we begin to age more rapidly internally than we do externally. Curiosity preserves our youthfulness. It is not about feigning to be someone we are not.